There are many different ways to go about nutrition, whether it be high calorie, high protein, low carb, high fat, carnivore, intermittent fasting. It can get overwhelming. And I want to talk about three main ways, almost did four there, three main ways that you can track your food or the ways that you can set up your meals throughout the week to have a better understanding of A, the nutrition that you're getting, B, keep more on track of eating in a calorie deficit and losing that weight, and C, feeling more fulfilled from your meals. Not every way that people go about this is going to be the right way for you. And so choosing the best way for you to stay consistent is what's important. Ideally, the best meal plan or the best kind of meal concept that you can follow is the one that works for you. Let's get into it. So obviously I say three ways to track calories. There's four numbers on the board. There's probably six total things that we can go over. Three sounds catchier in the thumbnail, and four, I don't know if I really want to count it as one because it's almost like a restriction, but we're going to get to that one. And then obviously number five is whatever works for you. We're going to have a whole big discussion of that at the end, so stay tuned. So the first thing that I want to go over is number one, the time calories. You're probably familiar with this type of diet or this type of eating of, oh, I have intermittent fasting, or I only eat certain times during the day and I don't eat after a certain time during the day. That's all fine and dandy. All it leads to is allowing you to have less opportunity during the day to overeat on your calories. That's usually why people consider it to work when it comes to fat loss the majority of the time. Now, discussing this one specifically, and before we go into the other three or four topics that I want to discuss, I want to go over the main goals when it comes to nutrition. Regardless of the foods that you eat, how you eat them, when you eat them, what you eat them, the main four goals are going to be all the same. And really what you want to focus on, especially if you're strength training and you want to build muscle, is you want to make sure that you're meeting your protein goal. Two, you want to have a variety of micronutrients and make sure that you're getting the vitamins and minerals that you need in any given day. C, you want to make sure that you're eating in your calorie goal, which is different for everyone. And four, we want to feel full after we eat. We never want to finish a meal and feel like we could still consume tons of different food. And so ideally, if you want to follow these four goals and then do a mixture of these different ways of setting up your meals or tracking your calories, that's going to be the best concept to it. And so let's go through the rest of these and then we're going to find out kind of like the perfect mix. I want to talk about the pros and cons of each one of these. And so let's really dive in. So intermittent fasting, the time calories, restricting when you can eat, restricting the times on which you don't eat after, that's fine. For many people, it'll help. Late night snacking is something that a lot of people struggle with. So if you have a cutoff time of when you're not allowed to eat by, that can be very helpful to cutting out those excess calories that may be putting you in a calorie surplus. And this thus will help you eat less in a day and ideally lose some weight over time by eating in a calorie deficit. Now, the things that I don't like about this is if you're waking up and you're starving and then you're forcing yourself not to eat for more hours in the day, or if your schedule dictates a later meal in the day, by then you have to kind of adjust your own time. This can be really helpful and it can help curb snacking. It can keep a disciplined kind of aspect to eating more foods than you need, but it's something that you need to be able to move kind of that time frame around and work with yourself. I never want anyone to intermittent fast if they are finding themselves draining themselves to get to that first point in which they can eat. The whole purpose of intermittent fasting is to restrict the calories, but it shouldn't be painful or undesirable for really anyone to a certain extent. Let's zoom through these. The macro counting. This is probably the most open way that you can track calories and eat to meet your goals that we talked about down here. Macro counting is literally exactly what it is. You simply eat all the foods that you want to eat, whenever you want them, whatever you want them, but you have to eat them within your certain calorie range. Now, the cool thing about this is that you can feel less restricted of the meals that you want to eat. There's less structure to it. You can feel more free-flowing. But the bad thing about this is when you get towards that calorie cap or you get towards the end of the day of meeting your goals, it may be earlier than you want it to be for eating calories. So for example, if you have a larger lunch, now you have less for dinner. You may have gone out to eat for breakfast and now you have very little calories for the rest of the day and feel like you have to eat next to nothing for those 12 hours of the day until you go to bed. The macro counting feature is one of those where you're only focused on the goal and not how you're getting to the goal. And there's something to be said about that. It's important to track your calories. It's important to track your macros and make sure that you're fitting it all within those certain parameters. But when it comes to tracking your food solely for the purpose of those calories and not having any input on anything else that you're eating throughout a given day, no structure, no plan, that's when things can kind of backfire unless you have the experience to know ideally what you're eating. And so at its purest form is eat whatever you want within the X. You define the goals of these are ideally how much protein I need to eat in a day. This is ideally how many calories I need to be eating in a day. I can eat whatever I want, and as long as I stay at or under that goal, we're okay. Sounds simple enough, right? It is, but it also isn't. So let's go to number 3. This is probably one of my favorite ways to eat personally. I use a combination of all 3 of these concepts, but number 3 is called the routine meals. Fan favorites, they're timed and they're pre-portioned. Meal prepping for a lot of people. Now, you don't necessarily have to meal prep all of these meals in advance. You can do what I like to call soft prepping, and you just have the ingredients ready to quickly throw together a meal in any combination of foods that you like. Now, when I talk about the routine meals, I'm talking about a little bit of consistency when it comes to eating the same foods during the week. You kind of have your fan favorites where you know that this meal meets your protein goal, you know how many calories are in it, it's easy, it's simple, it's something that you kind of enjoy eating, and therefore you just eat it quite a bit. So this is really beneficial for those people that have a busier schedule. Now you can take the guesswork out of what you're making for dinner, what you're eating for lunch, breakfast, what am I gonna do for breakfast? The only thing to be careful with this is if you choose meals that don't meet the variety of micronutrients you need, you might not be eating such a variety of foods that you're getting everything that you need in a single day or in your food, your regimen basically. But it is extremely helpful if you have a handful of meals that you'll do. So for example, I will meal prep a food that I probably will eat the same meal for 2 days straight. And then I'll cook another food and I'll eat that meal for 3 days straight or 2 days straight, depending on the portions that I make. Yeah, it gets a little repetitive, but then it allows me to have a little bit more freedom on the weekend when I have more time to cook what I like. And so therefore, what this does is it allows me to not have to use the mental bandwidth of whatever I'm eating during the day. So like the last thing I want to worry about when I wake up is what am I going to pack for lunch? What am I going to work for dinner? What I'm focused on in the morning is getting ready for work. I want to make sure that I hit the gym. I want to make sure that I get my lifts in. And then I want to make sure that I can take care of my dogs and say hi to, my girlfriend before we leave for the job. The last thing I want to do is be like, okay, should I prep a sandwich today? Should I chop a salad? Maybe I should maybe I have to cook some steak this morning to add with like a veggie and a carb. It's the last thing I want to do. So I have routine meals that I have set up. I don't even have to think about what I'm eating for lunch. It's already pre-portioned, it's already measured, and it's already out, and it's ready for me. The no meals, the non-negotiables. These are simply you cutting out foods entirely from your diet, meaning I don't eat cake anymore. I don't eat pizza anymore. I don't eat cookies anymore. And while this can be helpful for those that really struggle with keeping your calories within a certain limit, it can backfire because ideally what you should be doing is you should be eating the foods that you like to eat within reason, but then understanding how much they cost and trying to fit them into your diet. If you completely take them out, your brain is going to want these types of foods, and it's going to lead to a situation in which you binge eat and you end up basically blowing all your calories because your brain and your feelings, you want all these foods at the same time. And so the no concept can be helpful when you want to cut out calories that may be detrimental to your day. But it's also important to realize that if you really do crave these foods and you really enjoy eating them and you really like them, chances are at some point you're going to want to have to eat them. So try to work them in small quantities whenever you can. Especially you can definitely fit in foods that you enjoy eating. That's what I do on a daily basis when it comes to wanting to keep your calories down. And so basically those are the main 4 that I like to do. And what I use is a combination of all 4, really. So I have a bunch of routine meals that I enjoy making during the week, and I'll have them set up for myself, and it allows me to not think about lunch and dinner for many days of the week. I have certain days where I choose to go and cook the food, but I want to make sure that it sticks within my macro counting. And so maybe a Friday and a Saturday, I'll make sure that I focus on macro counting that day to allow me a little bit more flexibility of when I'm eating or why I'm eating. I've also used the time calories, where if I know if I have a bigger lunch, it's the weekend, I'm gonna sleep in a little bit. I've actually fasted more through breakfast. I might have just a protein shake in the morning because I know I'm gonna have an early lunch and it's gonna be a bigger lunch. And so now there's a whole section of my day that normally I would have had a pre-workout meal and then a breakfast that I'm now cutting out completely to make room for more calories later in the day. And 4, the no meals. My big thing is Oreos. I love Oreos. I don't keep them in the house because I have the lack of self-control to be able to eat all of them. And so that for me is a no food. Does it mean I never eat Oreos? No. It means that when I do eat Oreos, I vary by a very small pack or it's a very special occasion. And that might seem restrictive, but I also know that if I see Oreos in front of me, my brain and the receptors that ignite and launch when I eat an Oreo are not going to stop me from eating more and more of them. And that's okay. Some people have the discipline to do that. I have that discipline with a lot of different foods, but I also know myself that if I'm bored or if it's conveniently easy to grab those snacks, then I'm going to easily just go for them. And I'm just going to compile and just shove them down my gullet. So I choose to not have them. Those are one of my no foods. My no foods are things that I refuse to keep within my vicinity, but it doesn't mean that I refuse to eat them. It just means that I'm much more hyper aware of what they are, when I want to eat them, and what they cost. If you remember, or if you've seen my calorie counting video, then we talk about what food costs. It's not talking about the foods that we can't eat anymore. It's talking about understanding how much they cost us in a day when it comes to our calories. And so I feel like I went through this really, really fast. There's a bunch of concepts here, but you've probably heard of a lot of these different types of diets before. And when you think about all of these, they all meet the end goal. They all help people reduce their calorie intake, potentially increase their protein intake. And in a way, they help meet these goals down here in one way or the other. Not all of them are perfect. You may be the person that really enjoys intermittent fasting. That's something that you can do. You wake up, you're not hungry in the morning. And that's something that could probably help you when it comes to eating your calorie goal. But for some, like me, I wake up early and I'm very hungry when I wake up and I work out in the morning. For me, having my meals pre-portioned means that I know what I'm eating in the morning as my pre-workout fuel. And then it also knows that what I'm going to eat for lunch and what I'm going to eat for dinner. And then I allow myself, whether it be a Friday or a weekend day, to then decide what I'm going to cook those days and then fit it within the macro counting. I have a buddy of mine who's currently doing this macro counting thing. He doesn't necessarily have dedicated meals that he eats, but what he does is he just wakes up, he counts his calories for every meal that he does, he snaps it, and then by the end of the day, he just needs to make sure that he fits within those calorie counting days. Well, if you find yourself normally eating within that calorie range anyway, it can be helpful. But for me, I know I would easily blow, if I could eat whatever I wanted, by lunch, I would blow my calories. So that isn't necessarily something that works for me specifically. So take the concepts, take these ideas, take each one of these little snippets and apply it to your own life in which it can help you stay on track. And that's the whole purpose of this. It's not a diet. It's not a fad diet of something that you just do for a short amount of time and then you see results. But these are concepts of many things that you may hear on the internet or from others that they are doing to lose the weight. And it's simply just them leading to a calorie deficit and then losing the weight. That's it. All of these do that. They just require you to eat less or eat in a certain period of time so that way you're not binge eating everything. The end result is always the same. It just depends on how you get there. So pick what you need from each one, apply it to your own life, and then from there, you can meet the goals that you want. Whether that be, not whether that be, but is your calorie goal, is your protein goal, is your micronutrients, and then of course, make sure that you're feeling full. Which is a whole nother video personally of making sure that you're eating volume and not calorie dense foods. But we'll get into that another day. But hopefully these little concepts help you. Take what you need, apply them to your own life. If you need help applying these concepts to your specific situation, email me here. I would love to talk to you, chat with you over email, and try to see what we can fine tune in your lifestyle. Some people understand what they need to do, but there are just blockades in their life that are just too intricate, or there's something that's not clicking. And occasionally there's an analogy, or there's a different way that you can look at something, or there's a different way where an outside source can just give you a little piece of advice, and then all of a sudden the puzzle pieces click. And then you can apply it to your own life. So I implore you, if you want help or if you want assistance applying this to your life, please email me. I would love to help you. So thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.